The Architecture of a Standard, How Captain Moroni Anchored a Society Against Institutional Erosion 1. The Paradox of Prosperity, Why Societies Forget the Price of Peace. Human history is defined by a tragic recurring volatility, the speed at which a civilization can pivot from a miraculous preservation to internal collapse. In the Nephite record, this phenomenon is captured with clinical precision. Immediately following a decisive victory against overwhelming external odds, the society did not enter a golden age of stability. Instead, it fell into a charismatic vacuum. The vacuum was created by a sudden collective amnesia regarding the source of their hard-won peace. The irony is profound. A people who had just witnessed divine deliverance were almost instantly led into systemic dissension by a single ambitious figure, Amalickiah. This narrative offers more than a historical account of war. It provides a sophisticated case study in the intersection of modern psychology and leadership theory. By examining the events of Alma 45-46 through an analytical lens, we can extract counterintuitive insights into how leaders either fortify or erode the strategic integrity of a nation. 2. The mechanics of flattery and the charismatic vacuum. Amalickiah's rise was not a product of raw military force, but a masterclass in charismatic manipulation and the exploitation of institutional erosion. He leveraged flattery, not as a social grace, but as a calculated tool to mobilize the lower judges who hungered for expanded authority. By promising these minor officials heightened power, he converted their personal ego interests into a vehicle for his own quest for kingship. The text describes this shift as an instant amnesia, a psychological state where current desires for status eclipse past experiences of truth. This forgetting is not merely a cognitive failure, it is a gateway to iniquity. When memory is unanchored, a society becomes highly susceptible to leaders who offer immediate gratification over enduring covenants. Thus we see how quick the children of men do forget the Lord their God, yea, how quick to do iniquity and to be led away by the evil one. Alma 46:8. 3. Mirroring influence, transformational versus pseudo-transformational leadership. To understand the conflict between Moroni and Amalickiah, we must apply the lens of modern leadership models. Specifically, the 4 I's of transformational leadership: idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individual consideration. Moroni, the transformational leader, functioned through idealized influence. He was a man of perfect understanding who prioritized the collective welfare over personal gain, eventually resigning his commission once the crisis abated. Conversely, Amalickiah was the pseudo-transformational leader. He possessed technical effectiveness. He was persuasive and goal-oriented, but his charisma was fraudulent, used to treat people as tools rather than stakeholders. However, a sophisticated analysis requires us to recognize a darker reality. Leadership is a continuum, not a binary. Even Moroni, the exemplar, was susceptible to the natural man. Scholar David Rockwood notes that in moments of extreme social volatility, Moroni himself slid into pseudo-transformational tactics. When he suppressed the internal kingmen without trial and used violence to force compliance, Alma 51:19-20, he briefly adopted the very tactics of the enemy he sought to destroy. This serves as a vital warning. When the pressure of crisis mounts, even the most principled leaders are prone to trading strategic integrity for tactical expediency. 4. The title of liberty, a self-execrating anchor of identity. In response to the Nephite psychological distraction, Moroni created a physical anchor, the title of liberty. By renting his own coat, a deeply personal and tangible object, he codified 5 core pillars: God, religion, freedom, peace, and family. But the title of liberty was more than a flag. It was the focal point of a self-execrating oath. As Thomas Valletta observes, the ritual that followed was a psychological contract of the highest stakes. When the people came running together, rending their own garments and casting them at Moroni's feet, they were performing a ritualized self-curse. They were inviting their own destruction, to be trodden underfoot like the cloth should they fail to honor their covenant. This visual anchor galvanized a distracted populace, forcing them to confront the weight of their identity in a world of competing flatteries. In memory of our God, our religion and freedom, and our peace, our wives and our children. Alma 46:12-5. Lineage as leverage, the strategic utility of ancestral mythos. Moroni's decision to rent his coat was a deliberate invocation of an ancient religious type. He explicitly linked his contemporary struggle to the remnant of the Code of Joseph of Egypt, referencing traditions found in ancient apocryphal texts of a garment with the weave and breath of paradise that did not decay. Alma 46:24. Moroni elevated a local civil war into an ancient epic. This was a brilliant use of historical symbolism. By framing the Nephites as the remnant of Joseph, he provided them with a sense of millennial-old lineage. This wasn't just about political survival, it was the fulfillment of an ancestral destiny. By making the struggle feel like a continuation of a sacred history, Moroni provided his soldiers with a narrative that was far more powerful than Amalickiah's promises of prestige. 6. The reluctant warrior. Strategic fortification. As peacemaking, Moroni is often viewed through the lens of combat, but his true genius lay in his role as a reluctant warrior. He did not delight in bloodshed but sought to minimize it through strategic fortification. By building walls, earthworks, and security towers, he shifted the tactical advantage from offensive carnage to defensive preservation. Furthermore, we must recognize the principle of being no less serviceable. While Moroni provided the spectacular leadership required at the front lines, the high priest Helaman performed the quiet, vital work of spiritual maintenance. Modern analysts often overvalue the charismatic public figure, yet the record insists that the quiet leader and the spectacular leader are equally vital. A nation is preserved not only by its external walls, but by the internal spiritual fortress maintained by those who labor without fanfare. 7. Conclusion. The internal fortress. The legacy of Captain Moroni suggests that the most dangerous battles are not fought on the borders of a nation, but within the memory and integrity of its citizens. The rise of an Amalickiah is only possible when a society has already succumbed to institutional amnesia. True stability requires a perfect understanding of one's own values and a refusal to sacrifice long-term covenants for short-term gain. In a world filled with the noise of distracting flatteries, what have you written on your own title of liberty to ensure you don't forget what matters most?